Hello, everyone. This is Abi Small, and the channel is MC Deck Discussions. And today we're going to do something a little different. So I'm going to build 3 decks. Notice this one just says Iceman on it. This one says Iceman Clone. This one says Iceman Clone, because it's just a clone of them. And we're going to build an Iceman deck. And in particular, so I want you to go ahead and see my spreadsheet here, right? So you can at the bottom, I know it's kind of hard to see, but it has the hero names down here, and this one says Iceman. I will go ahead and zoom in a little bit on this sheet so you can maybe see that a little better. And so far I've done a Justice deck discussion and an Aggression deck discussion, but I haven't done these other 3 yet, so I'm going to do Leadership. But I'm going to build 3 different decks. Now, I actually want to do this in a streaming session as well, not for this particular not for Leadership Iceman, but for another hero. And I want to do a live streaming session so that other people can join me. They can participate in any way they wish. They can make suggestions, or they can make comments about what we should include or what maybe we shouldn't include. And we'll build 3 different decks. And the reason for having 3 different decks is we can go with different ideas that way. So that's what I'm going to do here myself today. But like I said, in the future, I want to do a live stream of this type of thing. And so in the comments, and I'll put these questions down in the comments myself too, and post it so that you can see this. But there are one of the questions you can, or something that you can comment on for sure. You can comment on anything you want. But if you wanted to go ahead and make mention of whether or not you would be interested in a live stream, and you could just be interested and not want to participate yourself, but you might still find that something interesting. And then secondly, what hero would you like to see done next, whether it's in a live stream or here? And you can also say which aspect. I'm planning on putting this spreadsheet. So if you look at the bottom, you'll see that it says, Bishop, Captain Marvel, Hulk. So these are different heroes that I have done. And you'll see check marks for the aspects that I've done deck discussions on. If it has green, by the way, I've done all 5 already, plus, above and beyond that. So that's Magneto and Wasp. So I'm basically done with them with regard to that. Iceman and Nick Fury, I've done a couple so far, and the rest that are listed on here, I've only done 1. So I will put the link in the description for this spreadsheet so that people can access it. You're welcome to look at it when you make your suggestion, but you also don't have to. Like, if it happens that I've already done the hero in that aspect that you suggest, then that's fine. I'll just take your suggestion into consideration and maybe go with that hero in another aspect, or but I'll just take people's suggestions in mind, keep them in mind. Okay, so with that introduction done, let's go ahead and start on the first one. So as I was saying, this is going to be in Leadership. I've already done Justice and Protection. I'd like to do Leadership next. And I don't actually have an idea of what I'm going to do, but I'm going to mention some things that first of all, in Leadership, I tend to really like card draw. So I'll probably have some of that, and at least, I'll have at least 1 deck that will emphasize that. But for Iceman in particular, right, he has his freeze ability, and it's an interrupt. When Iceman makes a basic attack or defense against an enemy, attach a set-aside copy of Frostbite to that enemy, which means it would be good to attack or defend as frequently as possible in order to attach those frostbites to an enemy. In particular, of course, the villain being the main one, but there are reasons why it's also beneficial to put that on any of the minions. So I do want to try to incorporate as much readying as I can. Leadership isn't really built for that, so we'll see what we can do with regard to that. But at a minimum, it does seem to me on this first deck that I would want to put into it. Let's go ahead and get logged in, signed in. All right. So at a minimum, what I'd like to put into it. So let's go ahead and look at the supports. And I want to look at the, the X-Men traded supports. And so to me, Utopia seems pretty automatic with regard to if I'm going to focus on that, especially in this first one. I'm guessing Utopia will be in all 3 of these, but for now, we'll start with that. And I do want you to notice that I've already put in to all three of these decks before I copied them and made the clones out of them, which I think is actually kind of funny because Iceman has his snow clones. So that is a coincidence. I didn't purposely put a name of clone in here because of the snow clones. It's just, that's what it's called. If you clone a deck in Marvel CDB, then it'll just say the same title and then say clone. And then I did it again, so it had the title and then said clone again. So that's why the clones are in there, not because I'm trying to title them. Oh, by the way, that could be another suggestion people could make, is names for any or all three of the decks. All right, so I think Utopia is going to be pretty much a given here. I'm guessing that I will also want to include X-Jet. So let's think about some other possibilities. All right, so if I am going to use Utopia and X-Jet, then a lot of times for multiples of those, I would like to include some of the side schemes, some of the basic ones. Oh, actually, let's go to the leadership right away. And for me, one of my favorites to do for sure is call for backup. Now, because this first one I am planning on that I want to have a card draw, I'm going to put Nick Fury in this, but I would actually, I tend to include Nick Fury in most any deck, but, I figure one of these decks I probably won't, just to kind of, have something a little different, but it's hard not to include him. But I'm going to put call for backup here, and, that's great for anybody, but specifically to get Nick Fury in here to be able to get that card draw, then I'm going to go ahead and put that in here right now. And of course, Nick Fury as well. So we've got call for backup and Nick Fury. And for Iceman as well, I want to be able to, so he has a great, oops, I didn't mean to click on that. So if we look at his alter ego ability, right, he has that cool off response, which is after you change to this form, shuffle one ice card from your discard pile into your deck for each copy of Frostbite that's in play. And so I'd like to put in the ability to go down to that side there. So to me, that means Professor X would be a nice inclusion to make it safer to go down to alter ego side. Right now, I'm thinking of all three of these decks as solo decks. Pretty soon, you'll see a video coming out on my channel that's actually going to have a pair of decks that are meant to be played together so that people can play a two-player game with those, or you can always try two-handed solo, which is what I did since I play all my games solo. But I will have a video coming out with those soon. But these right now, the intention is to do solo builds. But I do want to mention that when we have everybody together, it could be that people have interest in a two-player or other, 3 or 4 player deck that to build. So, we can go any direction we end up deciding at the time. All right, so let's see what else we'd like to include. Well, for sure, if we have Utopia in here, I'm going to want to include a lot of allies. Plus, this is leadership, right? And that's a big emphasis in leadership decks. So let's see what other allies we might want to include. I'm going to start with some of the basic allies, and let's go ahead and narrow this down again. So if I put K and then colon and then type in X-Men, then it will narrow it down to those that have a trait of X-Men. So let's go ahead and look at which ones might be the best choices here. Let's zoom in a little more. All right. So looking at this, so let's just put in all what I think of as the real possibilities to begin with. So Angel is often a nice choice, right? Because as he only costs 2, if your identity is X-Men or mutant instead of 3. And he has 3 health and 2 attack. So that actually makes him a pretty good bargain. Even though I don't include him in a lot of my decks, he's always under consideration. Beak is one of the ones that I tend to include most of the time, right? After you play Beak from your hand, remove 1 threat from a scheme for each X-Men ally you control. So he tends to be a really nice one for just a 2 cost to get in there and take care of that. I tend not to include Colossus, but I'm going to start off with him in there. Forge, I do want to include, right, because we have, when we have Forge, right, after he enters play, you can search your deck and discard pile for an X-Men support and add it to your hand. So the X-Jet is an X-Men support and Utopia is an X-Men support, and we might look at some other supports too. X-Men supports too, so Forge can be really nice for that. And even if you have all your X-Men supports in play, Forge, no matter what, is still just a 2-cost ally that can help to trigger Utopia. All right, so let's see what some other ones. Gambit is one of my favorites lately, right? So he's a 3-cost ally, and when he enters play, look at the top 3 cards of the encounter deck and tuck one under him so that only the boost field is available. So he ends up being sometimes worth just 0, which I just had that happen in the last game that I played. But sometimes he can have his attack and thwart be a 1, 2, or 3, even as much high as a 4. But I've only had that ever happen in one game. But I do really like Gambit because it also, you have the way of manipulating the villain's deck, the top cards of the deck. Legion is actually one I do like to consider, and I'm going to consider that here, which means let's go ahead and get. I'm just going to say it now. I'm going to put Make the Call in the deck, right? Because if I'm going to take advantage of Nick Fury, then I'm going to want Make the Call to get Nick Fury or any of the other allies that I might want. Let's see, other choices. So Legion being able to discard cards could put in people possibilities in order to use Make the Call once we get that in here. Shadowcat I sometimes include. I'll put Shadowcat in there now. So Shadowcat can be nice just because of having 3 cost and 2 thwart, but also the ability to get around some of those. You can make some of one of the side schemes lose all of its bad icons. Then we have Storm. I don't usually include Storm. Storm does have some strengths, but I just don't like the 4 cost. I've tried to include Sync a bunch of times and never ends up really working out for me, so I'm going to not include Sync, I think. Triage, right? So Triage is the one that when it enters play, heals 2 damage from an X-Men character, plus is only 2 cost at the same time. So that's really nice. And then White Queen. I've included White Queen in a fair number of decks lately, actually. I have been liking her. So when White Queen enters play, so you do have to, your identity has to be X-Force or X-Men to play. But after White Queen enters play, discard a status card from a character. So that is really nice. And is nice, especially for somebody like Iceman. If he's stunned or confused, you can discard that, or you can discard a tough from the villain. So those can be really nice. All right, and then let's go ahead and now look at the leadership. Well, I want to get those Make the Calls right now to make sure I have those already accounted for, right? Because that already puts us up at 35 cards. So I do think we're going to pare this down a bit. But let's go ahead and look at those leadership ones, and let's type this in again. So K for the trait, and again, X-Men. So let's look at the X-Men traded. So Beast is always a really nice possibility, because you play Beast and then you can get a discard card from either your deck or discard pile and add it to your hand. So that could be really nice. And then we have Cyclops. I think Cyclops is mandatory in this deck, right? So after Cyclops enters play, choose an enemy until the end of phase, increase the amount of damage that enemy takes from each attack by 1. So if Iceman can be set up to attack multiple times, that'll be great. But also, even so, of course, any of the allies attacking and any of the attack events. Here it is, Arctic attack. Note that Ice Blast is not an attack, so that one wouldn't count. Even though it does damage, it is not an attack, so that wouldn't count. But the Arctic attacks would count for that. Let's go ahead and grab Kid Omega and M, and then Phoenix. And I think that's it. But clearly I'm going to pare that down, right? We've got 18. But, this could end up being still a deck that's really focused on that, right? I mean, we used Utopia pretty like crazy in this deck. So there's something to be said for having something as simple as a really heavy ally deck that continuously triggers Utopia. I mean, we'd be guaranteed to trigger Utopia pretty much every single round once Utopia is out. So that is always a possibility. But let's go ahead and make some other considerations too. All right, so I will be paring this, the allies down in a bit. But I want to go ahead and look at these supports, and let's get rid of the X-Men trait now. Oh, wait a minute. Let's keep it there for a sec. I haven't included Cerebro in my decks in a long time, and with this many X-Men to choose from, right, then this seems like a really good choice, right? Search the top 5 cards of your deck for an X-Men ally. Search your whole deck instead if you control a psionic character, which you might, right? We have at least one psionic in here. I was wondering if Phoenix was, right? So we have Phoenix as a psionic, and we have Professor X, so they might be in play. And possibly there's another one in here that I'm just not noticing off the top of my head. But that would give a lot of choices for X-Men and be able to add to our hand when we're down on the other side. X-Mansion is a possibility, right? So you can heal 1 damage from a mutant or X-Men character, but I think I'd rather not do that one. If we have so many coming in, we also are going to have a bunch leaving, and so I don't want to necessarily try to keep a bunch in. Okay, all right. So let's go ahead and look at what we have now. All right, so at a minimum, let's go ahead and remove one of these allies. So like I said, I do have a tendency not to include, where is he? Let's see, Beak, Cyclops, Forge, Colossus. There we go. So I'm going to remove Colossus right now. Great ally. Lots of good reasons to include him, but I'm going to remove him from the deck. So now we're at 40. I'm not necessarily going to force myself to stay at 40. In fact, I tend to like to have 40, 41 or 42 in my decks a lot of the time. And in fact, we're about to increase it right now. So the player side schemes, I have call for backup, but I would like to include some of the basic ones. So first of all, we have some great upgrades that I want to include, and cryokinetic perception is an extremely important one to be able to get into play. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and let's see if we can refresh this. Okay. Sometimes I don't know why it does this sometimes. Let's just type something and then erase it. And there we go. I don't know why it does that sometimes, where it won't show them, but there we go. So build support, right? So we have Utopia, the X-Jet, and Cerebro as all targets for build support. So I'm going to include build support, and then superpower training because of what I mentioned about the upgrade. And then specialized training tends to be really good too with this many allies in here. Of course, like I said, we'll decrease those allies some more. But with this many allies that can appear in the game, we have plenty of chances to remove that 5 threat from the game and be able to get a specialized training, which we could then add to Iceman's attack, possibly, and be able to draw cards some more. So I'll go ahead and include that for now, though that's one I might remove, but I will include that for now. All right, so let's look at some other possibilities. Right now, this isn't a very creative deck at all, right? It's very generic, but we are building 3 decks, so I could always use this as a foundation for some other decks. So that's a possibility. And then be able to go from there. And I think I actually might do that. I think I'm going to go for this deck being a very simple one that focuses on using Make the Call. I am tempted to include, if we're getting out Nick Fury relatively frequently, then we can actually be able to use him even more if we include in the supports. Let's go over to leadership again. And if we include regroup, so let's say a couple of copies of regroup. All right. So with that in mind, I think, so we have some other great cards too, but I think I'd like to keep this one relatively simple and build from there. So I'll probably delete one of the clones, one of these other decks, and then use one of these as a starting one to then add some more creativity to the deck. But first, let's pare it down. So 45 is more cards than I'd like to have, especially because I do want to be able to target Nick Fury enough to get that card draw going. So let's go ahead and remove some of these allies, right? So I still want a big number, but 17 is don't need that many because I do want to be able to trigger Utopia regularly. So let's go ahead and look at some possibilities here. All right, I actually think I'm going to get rid of Legion. Okay, so let's remove Legion, and let's go ahead and remove. Yeah, too many of these have important things I want to keep, So I think I'm going to get rid of Angel, because Angel doesn't have the extra things that that can be done, like that, that as other cards come in. So let's go ahead and get rid of Angel. That brings us down to 43. And let's get rid of one more. I think I'm going to get rid of Beast. All right. So I'm going to leave it there. So we have 14 allies, and that means 13 of them have the ability to trigger Utopia. It's still close to 40. So that's still pretty nice as far as not having too many in here, so that I can get to Nick Fury, relatively quickly. So we're going to leave this as a simple deck. So for now, this will still be called Iceman until we figure out a title. And again, you can make suggestions for some titles here. But I do like the ability. We have 3 make the calls and 2 of these regroups. And the regroups can work really nicely with these others too. And yeah, there are some definite other cards that are calling to me right now. So I'm looking forward to starting the next deck. So we'll make this one the foundation for the second deck. Probably not for the third deck, but who knows? We'll see what happens when we get there. So let's go ahead and make a copy of this right now. Oh, I got to save it first. So let's save it. All right, and then I'm just going to hit clone. And as you can see, it says Iceman clone. So what I am going to do then is get rid of this other one that says Iceman clone. And here we have this one. Now that does mean we just lost our original one. So let me go ahead and bring that back up. I'll pause the recording while I do that. Okay, so here's the original one back that we just built. And then now here is our clone. So we'll start working from there next. Which means I'm going to have to click edit. All right, so some of you are probably thinking that, man, with this many allies, and specifically, now we may end up removing Nick Fury from this one, but specifically, if we have this many allies, there are some really nice leadership type of event cards that can help that, right? To me, my X-Men. So this one seems like a pretty good choice, right? We have a 1-cost event. Play owner if your identity has the X-Men trait, and it has a hero action. Search the top 5 cards of your deck for an X-Men ally and put it into play. If that ally is still in play at the end of the phase, add it to your hand. So that means that, so normally Iceman has a 5 hand size on the hero side. If you you would then have at the end of the play come back into your hand, and now you have a hand size of 6 at the end. That does mean that there'd be an ally that would be missing from play, but you'd have that extra resource card in your hand and the possibility of playing that card again, playing that hero, that ally again. So why don't we go ahead and include, let's say, 2 copies of that. And then the other advantage of that is we have another opportunity to trigger Utopia if we haven't already triggered it to begin with. All right, so I think what I'd like to do next is get a little bit more effective use of all these allies, since we have so many of them. And again, we have 44 cards, so we might be looking at paring this down a bit. So let's go ahead and look at some other types of cards now. So I'm thinking some different ways that we might enhance what they're doing. So we have some support's a possibility, right? So we have command team. So it has 2 costs, 3 uses. Exhaust command team and remove 1 command counter from it. It allows you to ready an ally. And then we also have some upgrades. And in particular, an upgrade I really like for a deck like this, where I'm going to be having allies that don't necessarily stay out there regularly, but come out. Plus, he has his snow clones, and snow clones cannot have upgrades attached to them. So rather than having an upgrade that attaches, this is definitely a type of deck where I really like the upgrade that allows your allies to be enhanced, but does not need to be attached to them. So that would be leadership skill. So this card right here, leadership skill. Now, the thing about leadership skill is, right, it's a 1-cost upgrade, has 3 uses, which I really like, but it's max of 1 per player. So I don't like to include 3 in a solo deck. It is max 1 per player. So in a multiplayer deck, that one could be really cool because you can send it out around the areas, but I'll include 2 here, right? So now that with Snow Clone, that would allow Snow Clone to increase their attack when they do it, but they would not be able to thwart still because there's that little dash there. So that means they cannot thwart at all, as opposed to somebody like, say, Professor X, who has a 0 attack. So Professor X would actually be able to attack for 1 when we have one of those cards out, or thwart for 4. But the Snow Clones would not be able to suddenly thwart from that. So that's just a good thing to keep in mind. So I'll include 2 of those. And then in this deck, I think I will go ahead and remove Nick Fury. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to remove one of the Make the Calls. So we'll have 2 of them. I still want to be able to access that. But we're planning on using To Me, My X-Men a bit more here, right? So I want to reduce the Make the Calls. And I think I'll reduce the regroup, because you can only have, this is only effective to have 1 of these out at a time, right? Because you have a forced interrupt. When the round ends, you discard this card. And this applies to every ally, right? So it has an interrupt when an ally is defeated by an enemy attack, return it to its owner's hand instead of discarding it. We're already going to be doing that to some with the To Me, My X-Men to begin with. But, so it's not really as necessary. So I think we just go ahead and remove the regroups. And that pairs us down to 42 cards again. And now we have 13 allies, all of them X-Men allies, all able to trigger Utopia. We have all of them as targets for To Me, My X-Men, all of them as targets for Cerebro, if I plan on keeping that. And I think for now, I'm going to go ahead and keep that in there. So this might be what we stand at, but let's see if there's anything else that catches my attention. Actually, I think I'd like to include Clarity of Purpose in this deck as an extra resource generator. So that's the one you exhaust this card and deal 1 damage to attached character, generate wild resource. I think he's a nice healthy character who can afford to take some damage, and if he has this many allies that have the potential to defend for him if necessary. Plus, of course, he has his what are they called? His frostbites that subtract so that they don't the enemy doesn't deal as much damage to him as well. So he has lots of things to keep his health up. So I think we'll go ahead and do that. We'll have Clarity of Purpose in this deck. I think that'll be a nice resource generator to add to the X-Jet. So we do also have, in this case, is it Utopia? Yes. So Utopia, if each of your allies has the X-Men trait, you increase your ally limit by 1. So now we can have 4 allies out at a time, which means I could actually plan on, we already have leadership skill that can add a thwart or attack from anybody, and you don't have to exhaust it. So that means you could have multiple allies that attack or thwart and be able to use it, on each of those. But lately I've included the support. Let's go ahead and find that one for X-Men. Danger Room. Here we go. So we have Danger Room. So that seems like that could be a really nice inclusion here. It's an alter ego response, so I'm going to want to go to alter ego side. But Iceman can go to alter ego side more easily than most heroes. So I want to go ahead and point that out real quickly. So not only do we have Professor X in here to help with that, but he also has, let's see, what is that card? Frozen Solid. He has 2 copies of Frozen Solid, right? So you attach to an enemy, max 1 per enemy. When attached enemy would activate, discard Frozen Solid instead, and then attach a set-aside copy of Frostbite to that enemy, which also will help if the enemy happens to try to, if we're on an alter ego side, can really help with preventing that scheming. So I think that means that we can go down to that side more easily. So Danger Room could be a nice inclusion. And if we're going to include Danger Room, then we're going to want to include some more upgrades here. Let's go to Leadership, which is Danger Room Training. And so I'll go ahead and put 2 of those in here. And that does mean that we're up to 46 cards now, and that is more cards than I'd like to include. So let's figure out some other cards to remove. Let's see, if we're already using To Me, My X-Men, maybe Cerebro might be a good one to take out of here. On the other hand, if I ended up getting Phoenix in play, then Phoenix is a psionic and can stay in play, unlike Professor X, and then Cerebro would be even more impactful. So maybe I don't want to do that. So yeah, let's include that, and then maybe let's remove one copy of leadership skill. Yeah, we can only have one out at a time anyway, and we might not need it as much if we already have danger room training on somebody. So I kind of like that. That brings us down to 45, and I'm thinking maybe we reduce the allies a little bit. I see we have call for backup in here. That is an option to remove that. Let's see. I think I'll remove Shadowcat. I'm going to remove Shadowcat. All right, so that brings us down to 44, and I might actually stick with a large deck on this one, relatively large. But that looks pretty good to me, right? We still have 12 allies to choose from. That's a lot of targets for To Me, My X-Men. We have Make the Call as well to, if we, To Me, My X-Men misses, right? Then we have Make the Call to be able to get somebody into. So lots of targets for that. We also have... right, we have some enhancements for the allies between Danger Room Training, right, to adds a hit point and all of those other features as well. We have Utopia that can help ready, Danger Room Training that can get Danger Room that can get Danger Room trainings on. We have Leadership Skill. I think that all looks pretty good. So we'll stop there. I'm willing to take suggestions also if some people think that maybe there is something to remove. But that's it for this one. So let's go ahead and pause there, and then we have one more deck to do. Okay, so let's go ahead and clone this clone. I actually got rid of the other one. So let's go ahead and clone this. There we go. So now we have Iceman clone. And let's start editing. And I want to go a different direction for this one. So let's remove To Me, My X-Men. And I'd like to go back to the leadership events. And I want to try to get some more readying for Iceman. And I think, is it this one? After you exhaust your hero to make a basic attack. Here we go. So you got this, right? So after you exhaust your hero to make a basic thwart or attack, discard an ally you control. Add that ally's matching power to your hero's power for this use, and then ready your hero. So I'd like to emphasize that one. So let's get a couple of copies of You Got This to allow for that extra readying. So you're going to be discarding an ally you control. All right. Which means I think I want to include one more of the Make the Call, but let's also narrow down this deck some, right? So let's narrow it down some. Let's see. All right, so first of all, it's no longer going to be a Danger Room build, right? So let's get Danger Room out and the 2 Danger Room trainings out, because if I'm going to discard cards, I don't really want them to have attachments on them. And then I can bring the leadership skill back up to 2, actually. So that narrows things down a bit. I'd like to be able to use Call for Backup to get somebody in if necessary. So we have the specialized training, build support, superpower training. Those all look pretty good. Let's see what else we might want to do here. I think in this particular deck, I am going to bring Nick Fury back for that card draw, because there can be times when he can just serve as that great emergency to, if we're going to be discarding somebody, then we can bring Nick Fury back out and allow us to bring somebody back in, another ally back in. Or even allow us to, let's face it, Nick Fury's card draw often serves the purpose of helping to get some of these other cards out into play. I do think I'm going to go ahead and remove Cerebro from this deck as well. And that might be it for the third one. So a little different approach with the You Got This, so we can get some extra readying. We still have 43 cards, still plenty, 12 of those allies are still going to trigger Utopia. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to keep Clarity of Purpose in there. I like that extra resource generator to make life a little easier. So a pretty simple change on that one. But I think I'm going to go with that, and we'll end this video here. Let's see. Let's go ahead and save it first. All right. So again, I'll put the questions down below into the comments for the possible things that you might want to think of responding to. But of course, you can respond in any way in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you appreciate this kind of content. And I will talk to everybody later. Have a good one, everybody.